What's going on, Vags? So I have here a Mitsubishi VCR. This is a SVHS deck, um, and for some reason, Mitsubishi decks, even not necessarily the SVHS ones, but the regular VCR decks, are underpriced on eBay. So if you're not finding anything locally on thrift stores, and you got to go the eBay route, definitely pick up a Mitsubishi because they're going to be cheaper than the Sonys and the JVCs, and they are built much better than those machines are. So pretty much any Mitsubishi deck from the '90s is gonna be a better bang for the buck than the other major brands. And like I said, they're built much better than those machines. Anyways, I'm gonna crack this thing open for some maintenance, and I thought I'd go over some of the things that you guys could do at home on your VCR decks to keep everything sort of working nice and smoothly. So we'll go ahead and crack it open and take a look. Now I take the top of this sewn off already. Um, every deck is going to be different, but usually you'll have screws on the sides or on the back. These machines, these Mitsubishi machines, were really meant to be serviced, so they make it really easy. So they only have one screw on either side, and that's it. Every once in a while, with the Panasonics, the higher end ones will have screws on the bottom that you have to take off to remove the top, which intuitively doesn't make sense. But by vast majority, they'll either have screws on the side or on the back or both. So let's go ahead and keep going. Now, something that a lot of decks did away with in the '90s, the consumer decks, are these flywheels here that help to stabilize the tape as it enters the drum head for a more stable picture. And like you could see here, this is a Mitsubishi, and they still had these things. So um, just one of the features that as VCRs, sort of it was a race to the bottom price wise. A lot of quality got taken out, but Mitsubishi still continued to build things pretty solidly into the '90s and into the 2000s. Now I got here just regular old Q-tips. You'll want some of these and some isopropyl alcohol. 90% is really ideal. I put it in this little mister bottle that I picked up a couple of these bottles from Dollar Tree, and it just makes it easier to just kind of spray the tip of the Q-tip so you're not being wasteful. So let me go ahead and do that and show you what we're gonna clean. All right, so once we wet our Q-tip, you're gonna go ahead and just start cleaning the tape pad, which will include the erase head on this side, and then after that, I will hit the audio heads, which will be here. Okay, and we're using alcohol, and then all of these rollers here, you want to clean these vertically, every single one of these. So all of these are here, all these things that the tape physically comes in contact with, you want to clean that. And then over here, the cap stand, you want to clean these here. And everybody will tell you never to clean rubber with alcohol, but you do want to clean this pinch roller. However, since I always rejuvenate the rubber, I don't mind doing it. But otherwise, you can use Windex. Now, on high mileage decks, you'll notice that this pinch roller here, that one right there, that will become glossy instead of being matte. So that's a sign of a high mileage VCR. And if it looks shiny, you'll definitely want to rejuvenate that. So you'll use a product that's a liquid that you apply to it, and it sort of gives that rubber texture back. So it gets rid of the glossiness. So just keep that in mind. Now this deck obviously didn't get a lot of mileage. After cleaning the entire tape path, that's about all the dirt that I could get off of it. So this is a pretty low mileage VCR, and it's pretty clean and in good condition. Now, not all VCRs will have this, but certainly anything towards the end of the '90s would have included one of these self-cleaning sponges that you see right over here. Now, everybody used just foam, cheap foam on these things. and that foam deteriorates after about 7 years. And then what happens is, what's supposed to happen is, as you insert the tape, the mechanism pushes that foam pad up against the drum, touching the heads and in theory cleaning them out. Now, once that foam deteriorates and breaks down, it becomes a gooey mess. So every time you insert a tape, that mechanism forces that sponge into here and mucks up the heads. So now you're doing the exact opposite of what you want to happen, where now you're clogging up the heads. So if you have a VCR that has a self-cleaning sponge, yank that out of there. Now Mitsubishi, because again they did things right, even into the aughts. This is actually not a foam self-cleaning sponge. That's actually felt, so that's not going to break down. And I, I'm I'm still going to yank this out just because I don't like the idea of that thing collecting dirt and then just putting dirt back onto the drum heads. So I'm going to yank that out as well. So we'll do that next. And to remove it, you should just be able to literally just lift it up completely and the whole mechanism will pop out. If you don't feel comfortable ripping out the mechanism, then just remove the sponge from the top at the very least. But, you know, on every single one of these, I can just lift up and then they're just clipped on and they'll come off. Just be careful not to rip off any ribbon cables. Now, this is what I use to renew the pinch roller. This is called Rubber Renew, but there's a number of manufacturers that make some of the products. Just be very careful with this. Use gloves. Be in a well-ventilated area because this is nasty, nasty stuff, and you don't want to be huffing this, and you don't want to come in contact with it. Definitely wash your hands and use gloves after you're done. And what I do is that I just, take this, and then I just take another one of our Q-tips here, and I dip it in here, open it, dip it in there, and then just work it across the entire surface area of the pinch roller. And what I'll do is that I will apply it onto my Q-tip, basically runs dry, and then I'll be a little more aggressive with the scraping, um, so as to sort of be abrasive against the rubber to really bring out that tackiness of the rubber so that it grabs the tape firmly as it passes between the pinch roller and the capstan. And so just do this, it'll take you a couple minutes. Again, be careful not to get this stuff on your skin, not to get it anywhere on the VCR except on the rubber. And if you happen to touch some of the metal parts, just grab another clean Q-tip with alcohol and just give that another pass against anything that you touched with this stuff that isn't the pinch roller. Now, something I neglected to mention and should have been the first step is as soon as you pop this thing open, um, you want to grab a brush of some sort, like this paintbrush, and you want to flip this thing horizontally like this, or vertically, I should say, and then go ahead and hit every surface area that's exposed with the brush to loosen up any dust. I had already done this, so I forgot to record it, but and then go ahead and grab some canned air or a compressor if you have one of those, and then just hit everything to get all the dust out of the deck before you start working on anything else. Now, while the pinch roller dries, which will take a few minutes, we can begin to clean the head. Now, again, you want to use a Q-tip with some alcohol to clean just the bottom half here of the head, go all the way around it, being careful not to touch the top half, and more specifically, these little areas right here. There's like little slots that you could see through, little tiny windows, and that's where your actual heads for the drum are. Now, you don't want to use a Q-tip to clean that area because the Q-tip is fibrous and it's very easy for a fiber to get tangled up with the head. And if it gets caught as you're cleaning it, wiping it, you can bend the heads with inside the window, and then that's pretty much FUBAR. That'll be the end of that VCR because you're not going to find a replacement part. So only use a Q-tip to clean the bottom half all the way around, and then we'll move on to the next step. I wanted to try to get a better picture, better image of what the actual head is. inside of the drum. See that little window? That's one head. That's two heads, three head, and four head. So this is a four head VCR. So to clean the drum, we're actually going to use plain printer paper. Just rip out little pieces, and then we'll want to apply again our alcohol to it, and then just hold it gently against the seam of the top of the drum and the bottom, and then you spin your drum carefully one way, and then switch the location of the paper to use a clean area, and then spin it the other way, and then you basically do that back and forth until your paper stops collecting up dirt. So let's do that next. So here we have our soaked piece of paper. Let's see if I could simulate how I would do this while holding the phone. So basically you want to just kind of hold that up against that, and then you kind of want to just spin this. I'm not anticipating this head being particularly dirty because this deck appears to be very low mileage, as I noted earlier, based on cleaning the tape pad. But you want to do that, and then take a look at your paper, and yeah, this one's not too bad. There's the slightest bit of grime, but usually these things will bring out a lot of dirt, and that affects the playback of your tape. And then you want to go back the other way, and basically you want to just do that until your paper runs clean. So I'm going to do that without holding the phone, and then we'll come back. All right, so with the inside of the VCR cleaned, the tape path cleaned, the drum head cleaned, the pinch roller being rejuvenated and cleaned, we can go ahead and start looking at the areas where plastic comes in contact with plastic and metal comes in contact with metal. Now you can see there's going to be grease applied to several points in the deck. Some of the cheaper brands from the late 90s, your Emersons and that type of shit, they didn't even bother putting grease. So if you open it up, you're probably not going to find any grease. So just because you don't see grease doesn't mean it shouldn't be there. So definitely anywhere that you see that metal comes in contact with metal, you're going to want to reapply grease and remove the old one if possible. Now, I use silicone grease, which this tube is just about spent. But you want to make sure you use a plastic safe silicone. I use silicone because it's just higher quality, and it doesn't turn to paste like the cheaper grease does. Now you could just, if you go to Home Depot and pick up a tube of silicone grease, you could just apply with a toothpick or something like that. I like to get a little bit fancier, so I picked up some of these syringes and I've filled them up with the grease, and it makes it easier for me to sort of apply grease directly where I feel it needs it. So we'll go over some of the points where you should be applying grease. So these rails where the tape guides are located, down here you see there's some residue of grease that used to be there and is no longer there. So we'll want to, clean this out with our Q-tips, and then we'll reapply some in that entire general area. Okay. Now, again, anywhere that you see where metal comes in contact with metal, put some grease. On the gears, you want to put grease there. Where this little motor is, those gears. And then on these here rails that guide the tape mechanism as it loads and ejects the tape. So right here, we'll want to reapply grease in these two little L-shaped guides, and same on the other side. So I'm going to clean this off, and then we'll grab the syringe and we'll start applying some. All right, so I got my syringe here filled with silicone grease, and I'm just going to dab some along the aforementioned area here where the tape guides pull the tape out and press it up against the head. So I just apply this, and then I let the actual mechanism sort of smear it into place once I insert the tape. And this is not the easiest thing to do. I'm holding the phone and and looking at the phone. So apologies that everything's shaky and it's not ideal, but I wasn't anticipating doing this today. I just had a couple minutes to kill. Okay, so I'll finish this off camera, but let's also take a look at the other areas here where we could use some fresh grease. So we'll dab some on here, and again, pretty much every single one of these gears where stuff comes in contact together, and we'll apply some. And I'll do this a lot better off camera, but I just want to give you guys an idea of all the places we need to be hitting with some fresh grease. All right, I'll come back once I'm done with this. All right, so now that we've given everything a once over, I like to go ahead and pop in the tape to make sure everything's working fine before I start to button things up, and move on to cleaning the outside of the deck. So you can see here, it loaded the mechanism, and so we'll hit the play button here, and looks good. You can see that flywheel there working as it pulls the tape in to sort of stabilize the tape as it enters the drum, so that you don't get any jittery that would normally be associated with VHS. So later decks, as you know, things got into the late 90s, they removed that and they relied on digital stabilization. But really, a metal flywheel, it's always going to be better. So let's eject the tape and let's go ahead and start working on cleaning the outside of this thing. Now I'm not going to go over how to clean the actual physical deck, because I think most of you guys could figure that out. Maybe a little Windex, maybe some furniture polish to make things looking really foo-foo. But I will touch on some of the other parts that get overlooked and are worth, giving a little TLC to. So let's go over that. Now this is going to obviously apply to all of the AV ports on the VCR. This is the front input ports, but the same applies to the rear in and outputs. You'll want to go back to your Q-tip here, and you'll either want to use alcohol, or you want to use Windex, and you just spray some on the tip of your Q-tip, and then just work it around the contact points around the perimeter of the RCA jacks. And then once you do that, you can kind of carefully get your Q-tip in there and try to get the dirt that's in there. Obviously, if this whole thing is caked up and dusty, you want to hit it with the brush as well first. If you happen to have just some real nasty grime inside, then one of these pipe brushes you can kind of stick in there and work in and out to break that up, and then go over it with a Q-tip. And once you do that, you're probably done. But because I like to be a little more thorough, I like to apply this electrical silicone lubricant, and I just spray it once everything's been cleaned. Spray it directly on these contact points. Obviously, the S video, it's not going to apply to 95% of you, and it's not an easy thing to clean. So all you can really do with that is just hit it with the spray duster, and then hit it with the silicone. Now, what the silicone does is an electrical lubricant. It kind of just binds itself to the metal and gives it protection. And really, it's something that you should be doing maybe twice a year. Just clean your ports and then hit it with that silicone lubricant to prevent any oxidation forming on the metal contacts, because that will impact your quality of your sound and picture. So I'm going to do all that, and I'm going to physically clean, like I said, the actual VCR, the outside, spray it with some Windex, wipe it down. And then once we're done, I'm going to button it back together and we'll watch a tape. All right, guys, I got everything buttoned up. I got the outside of the VCR cleaned out. I cleaned out the ports. I sprayed them with the silicone lubricant. And now I'm just doing one more playback. Great picture quality out of this deck. Kill that. So this is pretty much donezo. So that's basically, quick hygiene for your VCR that you could do at home to keep your shits working right. I'll catch you guys later.